Ralph, I definitely want to get to the actual game in a minute, but you were there for post-game with the 49ers, and my main thing right now is I can't get over how dejecting this must be, how demoralizing this must be for the 49ers to once again be this close and come up short. What was the mood there? Did it reflect that afterward?
Yeah, I mean, obviously they're dejected and they're sad, but the guys who had been there before were focused on the fact that this is the fourth time that they've been close. Two obviously times they lost in the Super Bowl, two times they lost in the NFC Championship game, and they understand that there's only so many times where you can knock on that door and not answer it, not go win a championship. And I think Nick Bosa was talking about how early on, you could say, okay, actually, it was Eric Armstead that was talking about how, earlier in his career, they have these opportunities. You can say, okay, well, we'll be back next year. It'll be the same. We're a growing team. They're not a growing team anymore. They're veterans who have been there, failed, and who knows if they'll ever go back. Teams don't usually get this many chances, and they understand that. They feel like they really blew what might have been their window.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. It's hard not to feel that way. Well, obviously, we'll see where it goes. But as for the game itself, I keep harping on the sequence in the third quarter. And I get it's easy to split hairs, but it did feel like holding a lead and, they get an interception in Chiefs territory. They had so many opportunities there in the third quarter to really try to take control, and they weren't able to do it. What wasn't working for them in those opportunities as they tried to really take a commanding lead there?
Yeah, I mean, they had three straight 3-and-outs to open up the third quarter, and even the defense really kept, like you said, giving them shots. They didn't give up a touchdown until late, and that was obviously, off the muffed punt that was bouncing off somebody's leg. The offense just seemed to kind of shut down a little bit. Purdy was under pressure a lot more than he was in the first half. Steve Spagnuolo really dialed up some excellent defense in the second half, and the 49ers didn't handle it well. They couldn't get guys open. Purdy didn't have time to make the throws, and even Christian McCaffrey in the few runs that he had in those series wasn't going as well as he was in the first half. So, I kind of give a lot of credit to the Chiefs defense and the 49ers sort of failure to adjust. And the way they looked at it, yeah, that was a big one that they had those 3-and-outs, and that certainly hurt. But their bigger issue was they felt like they should have been up a lot more earlier, that they blew opportunities in the first half too, even though they had a lead. So when they got into trouble like they did, they just didn't have the cushion to withstand it. They knew at some point they would struggle. But when it happened, it was just the game was too close and they ended up blowing it.
So many missed opportunities between, that sequence of 3-and-outs, the fumble on the first possession. Who knows how the game changes if you get points there. One thing I think is worth mentioning, and I apologize if it sounds like I'm making excuses, but it does feel noteworthy that they lose Dre Greenlaw relatively early in this game to an Achilles injury. I know Deebo Samuel returned from the hamstring injury, but I'm sure that was bothering him. Did it feel like, losing at least one player of that caliber and then even potentially losing some of Deebo's explosiveness, did it feel like it took any juice out of this team?
Maybe a little. It's sort of hard to say with Deebo because he did come back, and I'm sure he was limited after he did come back. I have to kind of, dig a little bit more into the tape to know for sure how limited he was. The Greenlaw injury hurt. In fairness to them, we talked to a couple of players about that after the game, and they said, well, there's a chance when you lose a player like that there could be a momentum shift. You feel his loss because he's such a good linebacker. But up until the fourth quarter, they still played well without him. They still got the offense opportunities to put the game away. They still really up until those final 2 minutes, you could argue they kept Patrick Mahomes in check about as well as you can expect in a game like this, even without Greenlaw. Just eventually it wore down. Eventually, if you've got a team where you're giving them so many opportunities and it's Patrick Mahomes and it's Andy Reid and the Chiefs, and you're a little shorthanded on defense, eventually it's not going to go right. So whether it was a loss of one guy, I don't know, but they felt it, that they were just able to withstand it up until a point.
I assume it's going to be a while before anybody with the 49ers is looking too hard for a silver lining. But if you want one, maybe it's at least the fact that I thought Brock Purdy was pretty damn good in this game for the moment, for the stakes. At the very least, you look at this and say, hey, this guy is not the reason why we didn't win this game. At least I don't think that's the case.
Well, I do agree with that, but I tell you what, we talked about this in one of our preview shows. What was really evident to me in the fourth quarter and overtime is that while Brock Purdy is good enough to win a championship with a team, Patrick Mahomes can go out and win one by himself. So there is a gaping gap between those two quarterbacks. And, I think that the 49ers are a really good team. Brock Purdy did not hold them back, but he did not put them over the top, which is a question they've got to grapple with. Maybe it's good enough for them. Maybe maybe he can become that quarterback, but he's not yet, to me, that special elite quarterback where you say, we've got him. We know he's going to make something happen in the fourth quarter and overtime, because he didn't. He had a couple of chances to make plays. They ended up with field goals instead of touchdowns. Patrick Mahomes raced him downfield. I think they should have taken one more shot at the end zone at the end of regulation. But, in overtime, he found ways to make plays on 4th and 1 with his legs, on 3rd and 1 with his legs. Obviously, the touchdown pass. Purdy wasn't making those kind of plays when you needed it the most. Patrick Mahomes is a championship quarterback, and maybe that's what the 49ers are missing.
I was thinking about our segment on the preview show all night because it played out exactly that way. Look, I've said it a million times on this show. Mahomes got a lot of help from his defense, but this is the case of perfect roster, good quarterback versus good roster, perfect quarterback. And that's why it's got to be so demoralizing for San Francisco to see how much they have and yet still be lacking. And it feels like the type of thing that could linger a little bit, knowing that you can be this close, and if you don't have a number 15 in your lineup, you still might not win.
Right. And they felt it. They felt the difference, because all of them talked about how, man, when you've got Patrick Mahomes on the other side, you can't let them hang around. I guarantee you the Chiefs defense wasn't thinking, wow, we can't let Brock Purdy hang around. He's not the kind of guy you worry about like that. So, again, it's a decision that they have to make organizationally. Can they win a championship with Brock Purdy? Yes. With that team, obviously they were close. They had a lead in overtime. You can't get any closer than that. But can he go out and win you one? I don't think so. I haven't seen that. And, that's for them to decide, well, is that enough, or do we need to go find a number 15 or, that kind of special quarterback? It's a really tough call because, there aren't 32 good NFL quarterbacks. Brock Purdy is one of them. He's just not on that level. And, when you get to that level of those top 5 or top 6, those are the guys that you dream about that, win you championships.